What's up, peeps? It's another week. It's now 10 degrees and we can work in the workshop without freezing. So let's show you how we are going to build some jacking points for the coupe. So if you've seen in the previous video, I've got this inner sill section added in. It all still needs wire wheeling and grinding down. Don't worry about that for the moment. So as you well know, these cars, the jacking points love to just fall to bits, as this one obviously has done. What we've got left is this tube where the Widowmaker would go. So into here, and then obviously you can jack off that. So the structure around that and above that is all pretty damn good. So what we're going to do is we're going to build off that to create our new jacking point. So what I've purchased is some 5 or 6 mil sheet steel. This is off eBay. I think it was like 25 quid or something like that. What I've done is I've got a 100 mil piece, and then all I've got to do is cut off in 80 mil sections, and this will form the lower piece, which will be welded to this inner sill and come out to roughly here, something like that. So a nice big square base, and then to join this to the car, we're going to use some tubing. I can't remember what diameter this is. Let me have a quick look. 40 mil. You could probably go a little bit bigger if you wanted, maybe 50 or 60, but I'll grab this 40 mil. It's, I think, 1.75 mil wall thickness, so quite thick and sturdy. We're going to cut this, I don't know, it'll be 100 mil long, something like that, 80 mil, and then we will add a, I don't know what you call it, some sort of curve to this top piece, which will then sit lovely around the tube on the car. Obviously weld that to the car, and then the base will be flat cut, and that will be welded to this base piece. So nice and simple. It should be plenty strong enough. Once it's on there, I might decide to add a little bit more bracing just to tie this front or this back section into that lower part. But hopefully once it's welded to this inner sill, it should be pretty robust. But either way, I want to do like a belt and braces. I don't want to be revisiting this. I'm sure no one else wants to. So that's the plan with that. So you can see I've marked this up. So I'm going to cut this. So for future reference, this is 80 mil by 100 mil. So I'm going to cut that with a grinder and then place that on the bottom of the sill, and that will give me a measurement for this piece. That's the first piece cut. Not too bad with a hand grinder. I need to add some holes for the jacking point. So I'm going to position this on the chassis and then figure out where I want the hole to be. Obviously somewhere in the middle somehow. So we basically just need to add this shape onto there, which is going to be interesting. So I'll probably drill some holes and just use a work a drill bit around in it. Right, now the next stage, what I've done is I've found the middle of this piece, which is down there, and then that section I think is about 18 mil by 35 mil. I've figured out where, I've butted this up to the inner sill, figured out where roughly this jacking point should end up, which would be something about that, and then just sort of centralized it to where I want it and then marked it out. So that will then sit in there like that, obviously on the bottom side. So next up, we're going to drill out this section here, ready to receive this. So that fits pretty well. Obviously it's not the tidiest thing in the world because I'm using a grinder and a spot weld drill bit because that's all I have. I think if I invested in a Dremel, I could probably tidy this up quite nicely. Chuck a bit of weld in the corners and just, or a file. I've got no Dremel, no file, so we might have to put this little part of the project on hold. So I'm wondering whether I should make a template of these and offer these out to anyone who wants to repair their jacking point this way. The Valkus garage ones are quite good because it's a full jacking point, but it's kind of like OEM and it will just fail again, I guess, if the rot gets in there. At least with this, it's kind of future proof because it's going to take a fair old while for that to rot through, along with the upright. But yeah, let me know what you think. Obviously that's a pretty crude way of doing it, but if I made a template, now I've got this, I could then replicate that pretty well and sell this as a jacking point plate with the cutout in it for the pads. But anyway, we can now cut our front piece, our pole, and get the height because we've got this bit sorted. So right, I really want to try and get this done today, so I should be patient, but I just can't be patient. I've ordered a die grinder, but that's not going to be here for a couple of days, so I'm going to try, because this jacking pad thing is wrecked anyway because this is bent or broken. So I'm going to try and use this as a template to just weld in here, turn it over, do the same on the other side, then grind it flat and see how it looks, because it might actually take that shape. I don't know, this plastic seems really hard, so it might take a little bit of heat before it melts, so we might get lucky. Let's see what happens. Worst case, we can revisit in a couple of days. We've got the stuff here, so let's have a go. Well, I'm relatively happy with that. Obviously welded some of these cuts just to fill it in. I'd have done that anyway, and then just flattened them down. It's pretty much got the same. I mean, if I wasn't that fussy, I could probably just smash that in and use that. Don't do as I do, do as I say, which is get a proper Dremel or a decent file. But anyway, that's my DIY way of doing it with nothing but a drill and a grinder. So it's got us pretty close to what we need. So our next stage, I've put a central vertical line down the middle of this tube here. So we know then the central part, if I draw a line down the middle of this where the jacking pad is, this would then keep everything aligned. Obviously we'd line those up and that would be tacked on something like that, give or take. Anyway, before we do that, what we now need to do, now we've got that roughly in position, we need to take a rough measurement between this tube and the base plate, leave an excess on there because we need to create the shape so it fits snugly around this tube up here, and then we can start to get it sort of turn it down so it's the right size. So I'm going to cut the pole 80mm long, which should give us ample to turn down. Right, we picked this up 24 hours on. A good friend of mine lent me a tool to get this jacking point finished off, so I'll just show you what I've done there. So that's the jacking point. Not 100% perfect, but pretty happy with that for someone first time ever made one, etc, etc. But yeah, obviously if you cut it on a machine you get a much better finish, but it's a lovely fit. So show you this jacking point. This one's a bit melted, so it's not a perfect representation, but that then fits in there, a nice tight fit. And obviously that's how it sits on the car. There's a bit of a gap here, which is totally normal because you've got to allow for the second outer skin and obviously a bit of paint and seams here and all that stuff. So that will then sit there on like that. Off camera, I've been fine tuning this. So this is the pad that's going to basically make the lower piece join to the chassis. Essentially we're going to end up with something roughly like that. I've got a nice or relatively tight fit around this just with a grinder, so it fits nicely around that tube. So next up is obviously get it in the exact position I want and then weld it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tack this in place, and then I'm going to make this outer skin fit the car, because I want to make sure that this piece, hang on, this piece isn't too proud, because if you look at the floor down there, it sort of tapers off. It's flat under here, but up here it sort of tapers off. So I want to make sure that that's not too long before I fully send it and weld it in. I don't think it will be, but just for peace of mind. Okay, that's all welded. I did a second run on it. This is only like 1.52 mil, but this being a 6 mil plate, I don't know if my MIG 180 is up to the job. So I did one quick run around it, and then a second run at full heat, and then just melted it. So that should now be melted together forever. So happy days. I'm going to leave that to cool for about the next year, and then we're going to look at making this outer skin fit. So whilst that's cooling down, I think now's a good time to start test fitting this outer skin. So a lot of this back piece is probably going to come off, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this little piece I've left here off, get that out of the way, and then we've just got one complete bit of seal to tie in up to here. Obviously I'm probably still going to add some more bracing here, but I really want to test fit this outer piece once that's on. So yeah, we can come back and add a bit more brace if we want to. This saloon seal, that's what we're going to use. If you'll notice, as you probably know, you can't buy coupe seals anywhere. So what I'm going to do here is, that gets us most of the way, but if you look at where the two holes are for the jacking point, there and there, this seal is on the saloon is probably about, I don't know, 1.5 inches too long. So I'm going to have to cut out from this piece to get that fitted a bit better. So yeah, not fun. If you've got a coupe, doing the seals is not the easiest thing in the world. It'd be a lot easier if it was a saloon, but we are where we are. So our jacking point's probably cooled down. Anyway, we're cracking on with this seal. So this little ledge that was here, I've cut off, so I've now squared this off. This gap is deliberate because I'm probably going to replace the whole back half of the seal, so I don't care about the rear fitment as such. Now what I'm focusing on is making sure this piece fits lovely in here. I've had to just tweak this inside edge with my friend's tool. Once that's sitting where I want it to, which it pretty much is, it needs to be right back and seated. I then work on this edge. We're a bit short here, but we've got quite a bit of material to take off here, so that's fine. What you need to look for when you're doing these coupe seals is you need to lose some material here, because obviously the coupe on the front is much shorter because of the wing design. So what I need to do is I need to put another cut here. This is still too long, so I need to put a cut somewhere between where the original seal starts to turn round and the edge of this. So there's probably a, I don't know, a window of like 10 mil there where I can put a cut down. Then once I've done that cut, I'll then come along. I've hacked this piece off the front of the seal, and I'll need to shorten this piece till about there, and then in theory that should sit nicely, something like that, and create a nice seamless join. Obviously these are pressed seals from eBay. Fitment isn't perfect. You've seen me having to tweak this. This is going to need a lot of tweaking. It needs welding together in places. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. So once I've cut that piece in, I've got this piece I cut from my friend's car, which is pretty clean. That sits something like that. So essentially I've got to use this lip or this little turn as a guide, and then make sure before I weld it in fully that this then fits nicely over the top of it. So that's kind of what I'm working to as a reference. Obviously we've still got to come back in here and just figure out what exactly we're going to tie in, but yeah, we're kind of making progress. It's nice to see it with an actual sill on, and obviously the underside, dead easy. That'll just be spot welded to this lower floor panel, so that's fine. So yeah, just got to tweak this edge. I'm pretty happy with how this is sat. Tweak this top edge so it sits in there, and then that piece is kind of finished fettling. Make this cut, and then figure out what the hell we're doing with this, because that's a bit of a mess. Make that fit here, fit in there, test the top piece over, make sure everything's happy, and then pull it all off and start to weld it and close it all in. So we are getting there. You can see the plan, you can see the kind of way I'm preparing this. Lots and lots of time getting this to this stage. So now the mount's cooled down, I can show you. So that's now welded together. Obviously lovely and sturdy welds. So obviously that needs a good wire brush to get all the oxidization off, but that's pretty much now ready to be welded into the car. So you can kind of see where we're going with this. So the saloon seal doesn't really fit at all. That whole end piece doesn't really work, but that's fine because I kind of guessed that from a quick look at it. But what I've done, we've cut this, obviously I've still got to finalise this top edge, so don't look at that too much. That's kind of what we've got there, obviously with a bit of fettling with this sat back properly. I think that's not too bad, if I'm honest, considering it's for a saloon. But yeah, you kind of get the gist where I'm going with this. So that's gonna sit there lovely, and then what I need to do is somehow fire up my fabrication skills and make it a piece from scratch just to fill that, which is fairly straightforward. There's a few curves and bits and pieces in it, and just make all of this lower part tie in quite nicely. Anyway, so before we get carried away doing that, because that's the next job, that jacking point sits in there, plenty of clearance. Obviously all of this is just loosening in place, but everything looks happy, so we can go ahead and we can get that lovely jacking point now welded onto the car. Okay, so that's all welded in. I had the welder turn up to max amp, 680 amp, because I really wanted to melt these two together, but I ended up melting this single sheet up the top here and went through the inner skin slightly, so I had to come back and fill some holes. So I'll grind all that down just to make sure there's no holes in it. But the back side went pretty successfully, and then the front, I think maybe the metal's a bit thinner there if I've ground it down or something, but yeah, pretty happy with that. This looks a bit ugly because I've just melted everything just to get it all solid together. But yeah, pretty happy with this side. That all went in there pretty lovely. Not the easiest thing in the world to weld because obviously access is pretty limited, but yeah, hopefully you can see how that looks. So anyway, we've now got a jacking point. Pretty fucking stoked about that, I won't lie. There she is. That's all mint. And then the next job will be to get this outer piece fettled into position. That all looks very, very good. So yeah, coming along, guys. A few more hours of trimming and prep and stuff like that, and we should be laughing. So next video, we'll get this outer skin on and hopefully smash through this whole outer piece. That was a bit time consuming, first time I made something like that, but it seemed to come together pretty nicely. So yeah, I might try and test jack this and see if it moves, if there's any flex in anything. I don't know if I should brace this down to here. Let me know what you think in the comments, or whether you think that's adequate. Obviously this is some thick metal with some thick tubing, so it should be pretty good. But yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, thanks for all the comments on the last video, and stay tuned for more content. Peace.